JB.
You know he didn't even ask either, did he, Jay? But he didn't care.
Let's make sure JB gets the first question.
I don't need to make a question, I just would.
No, I get started.
Let me get change of pace.
So you back.
Good morning, everybody. You got to love college football. It's crazy. I mean, we've had 2 games that came down to the last drive. Other than that, we've beaten teams pretty soundly, except for the App State game. So App State came to the end and we won the game, and then we haven't been successful the last 2 weeks. But it shows you the parity that's out there in college football. I put up scores every Sunday for our players and just see the shocks that happen in college football across the country. And we have to educate ourselves because it is what it is. And I do think the transfer portal's probably made it where everybody's got some really good players. And everybody can, if they're struggling some, they can get good players like we did to be a better team the next year. And the transfer portal's not going away because it's everybody's got a quarterback. I thought King played great Saturday night. He hadn't played that well. He struggled the week before against Boston College, but he played well. But Georgia Tech beat Miami at Miami. So they're obviously a really good team. They've got the fastest receivers that will play probably this year. And we had trouble tackling them in space, and then they ran the ball on us in the second half. So we've got exciting finish to the season. You start looking at, we've got what would be considered 3 rival games, one here with Duke, and at Clemson's hard to play, and Duke's playing great, and then at State's hard to play. So we've got our hands full. We'll have to get ready to go against Campbell this weekend at home. Only have 2 home games left for these seniors who have given us a lot of joy over the last few years. So I want the fans to come out and thank them. And we do think this will be the last 2 games Drake will play at home. And he played great Saturday night. So we're sitting here at 6-2, and we're probably 2 drives away from being a top 10 team. And that's how close we are to being a great team. And we'll talk a little bit about it. We had a really good start, and last week against Virginia we didn't, so that was one of the keys. Then we had a great first quarter. Continued to do the same the second quarter offensively, and then gave up too many big pass plays in the second quarter defensively. Came back out the third quarter, maybe the best third quarter we've played. Offensively, we only scored 7 points, but we kept the ball all but 1 minute. Defense intercepted a pass on the first drive after a block punt for us that saved us, and then defense had a 3-and-out. And so you're going into the fourth quarter with an 11-point lead. Like last week, we had a 10-point lead against Virginia. And unlike what we've done the previous 4 years, we have played well in the fourth quarters. We have not played well this year in the fourth quarter. We've scored 33 points and given up 56. And you ask why, I don't know why. We're looking at conditioning, we're looking at our practice schedules, we're looking at everything, because you got to win in fourth quarters. And we played better in the fourth quarter against App State, obviously, than last year. But Saturday night's fourth quarter defensively was unacceptable. And it was more like the fourth quarter defense against App State last year, and cost us the game. So we have to finish games better. Offensively, you rush for 267 yards, 5.7 yards per carry. Drake throws for 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, and runs for a touchdown. You score 5 touchdowns in your 5 trips to the red zone. You're 9 of 15 on third down. Those are all the positive things. Still too many penalties. We've got to get rid of the holding penalties. Whether they're holding or not, they call them, and it puts us in a tough spot. Cost us an opportunity to score at the end of the game again. So we've got to eliminate offensive penalties, and most of them are offensive penalties. And the other thing we've got to do that we just haven't done, we've got to score. When we're behind the fourth quarter, we had 2 opportunities to score against Virginia and didn't. And as good as our offense was in the game, you got to win the game. And then the same thing Saturday night. We had 2 opportunities to score. We missed a field goal on one with a guy that's not missed a field goal all year, and then the other one we fumble. and got a first down and had a holding penalty to call it back on the field goal drive. So offensively, we can still get better. We can still do things better and score when we've got opportunities to win games at the end, which we did last year. Our team wasn't as good last year, but we won a lot of close games, and we haven't done that in the last 2 weeks. Defensively, we're just inconsistent. Until we stop the run better than we have the last 2 weeks, we're not going to win here at the end. All these teams run the ball good, and now everybody's just going to line up and run the ball. And I don't know why we were playing good defense early and why we were stopping the run early and why we're not now. And Gene will be here in a minute, and you can ask him. Ask him why he thinks it's a problem and what he thinks we're going to do about it. Because until we stop the run better, we're not going to win another game. Period. You can't give up that many rushing yards. That's football. And I gave the staff a quote from Coach Bowden this morning: don't keep practicing things that aren't working. Why aren't we stopping the run? And we have to. That's basic football, period. And why are we so inconsistent? Why did we play a great first quarter and a great third quarter and then stink in the second and fourth? I don't know. Those are things we've got to get answered. And we've got to make sure I love these players. They tried hard. They had a great week's practice. They were ready to play. So it's on us as coaches to put them in the right positions and give them opportunities to win. So I never ever blame it on players. And I do think that, like everybody else in the country, and Georgia Tech had the same problem, we're having trouble with tempo. It's eliminating calls, and it's eliminating substitutions, and when you get a long drive, people get tired, and you can't substitute. So tempo's the biggest change in college football for defenses across the country, and it's hurting defenses more than ever. And here's a defense that had 2 fourth-down stops that were unbelievable at the first of the game, had an interception to start the second half of the third quarter, so they did some really good things until the fourth quarter, where we had absolutely could not stop the run. And it cost us the game. Special teams, the good things are Liam Boyd was back, and he kicked all the kicks out of the end zone, so they didn't have a chance to return a kickoff. Doc Chapman stood up on offense and caught a touchdown pass, so good for him. He's worked really, really hard to get that opportunity, but he also had a really good kickoff return and put us in a position to stay in the game at a critical time. So really, really proud of Doc and Liam Boyd. Missed the field goal, like we said, and now we've had another block punt. It's been somebody different every time, but the same scheme. So I've told them we've got to look at changing some things. We had the right people there, but our shield twice, 3 times, 2 times they reached over it, and this time they ran around it behind. So you got to get the ball off on time, but you also have to do a better job in the shield. So we've got to improve in that area. And I also want to brag on William Barnes. I mean, Omarion played great. He had one of the best runs I've ever seen, where we didn't block anybody on the goal line, and he broke a bunch of tackles and scored. He's a special player, and we got to keep getting him the ball. So proud of him. Proud of the offensive line. We've got to eliminate the holding penalties, but they protected Drake well, and they also were running the ball really well for the last 2 weeks. So they're doing a good job with what they need to do, and the tight ends as well. All of it's about stopping the run. We got to stop the run to get better, and that's been a problem around here for 5 years. And like I said, we improved in that area against some really good running teams. Miami ran the ball really well, but we haven't done well with it since the Miami game. Campbell is Military Appreciation Week, and glad we'll be back home after fall break for all of our fans to pull for our team the last 2 weeks. Mike Minard's the coach, and he was a great player for the Panthers, and I remember him as an outstanding safety at Nebraska. And he's done a tremendous job there. He's been there 10 years. He's taken a lot of transfers, and that's what's happened now with whoever you play. You're seeing new players show up, but they got guys starting from FSU, LSU that we recruited. Their nose tackles from Illinois, an offensive tackle or guard from UCLA, offensive tackle starting from Wake Forest. They got guys from NC State. They've got transfers all over the place, and that changes the dynamic. Their best players are quarterback Haj Malik Williams, 37 career starts, all-time passer in yards and touchdowns in their school history. He's completing 74% of his passes, which is second in the FCS, so he's done a really good job. But if I'm them, I come in and try to run the ball, because until we stop that, like I said, we're not going to win another game. Questions?
Mac, you mentioned how the transfer portal has equalized a lot in college football. You guys have players from FCS schools like Elijah Huzzy. Do you feel like this is probably the best FCS has been since, or former Division I AA has been, that you've seen in college football?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody's just trading players, and everybody's getting good players. And you've got to give Mike so much credit for getting those transfers. How does he get a lineman from UCLA? And I can understand NC State and Wake Forest. Linebacker from LSU was very highly recruited. We recruited, and he wouldn't visit. And then George Wilson was a great defensive end from Virginia Beach, and he went to Florida State, and he's their best pass rusher, or one of their best pass rushers. So they've done a really good job with the transfer portal.
Looking at the fourth quarter, and you mentioned tempo. I mean, was it just a case of your defensive line just getting worn down? And it looked like their offensive line did a good job as the game went on, especially.
Yeah, I think so. Gene will address all that, Chip, here in a minute. But, I mean, you can't get them off the field, and they blocked us, and we didn't respond very well. So that was very, very disappointing. I do want to brag on Ced Gray. It's his birthday today, and he's one of the best kids I've ever seen, and one of the best leaders I've ever seen, and he'll help us get it straightened out.
Is there a trigger point is there a moment maybe where you sense that some of this stuff that was working defensively earlier, just for lack of a better term, kind of fell over a cliff?
I wouldn't say it fell off.
I'm trying to find a good way to say
Yeah,
it.
the good way to say it is we were playing great defense before the Virginia game, and we have played very poor defense the last 2 weeks. So if falling off the cliff's a better term for you to be dramatic, that's...
Well,
I don't know if it's my term so much. I was just trying to find a way to...
Yeah, here's what...
It's been pretty dramatic.
Yeah, here's what you don't hear. We played great defense the first quarter. Why? We didn't fall off the cliff the first quarter. We played maybe the best defense we've played in a long time in the third quarter. Didn't fall off the cliff the third quarter. So you all want it to be drastic. The fourth quarter, we were absolutely awful, as bad as we've been since we've been here. So to me, you look at what's good about first and third quarter, and you try to figure out, like Chip said, what happened. Second, they threw it. Fourth, they ran it. And why? And part of that's offensively. We didn't play as well on offense in the fourth quarter, so we were 0-3 on third downs. So if we stay on the field offensively, and that's why this stuff gets pretty complicated. It's not as simple as everybody wants it to be. This bunch stunk. No, it's a team game, and we start talking about complementary football. When you can't move the ball, you leave your defense out there too long, they're going to get tired.
Staying on that, you mentioned going back to even after Pittsburgh when you had to settle for field goals, Syracuse had to settle for field goals late. You kind of saw some of these issues before they led to losses. What has been the problem not being able to score touchdowns in the fourth quarter? I think the other night was the first one since Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of it, we've been slowing the game down. We were ahead in most of those games, so that's most of it. And that's skews those numbers some. Saturday night, we didn't score much, and they scored a bunch, and that's a problem.
Mac, as you've gone back and looked at it, it looked like, at least their Saturday night to some of our untrained eyes, it looked like Georgia Tech threw it on you pretty well in the first half, and you adjusted, maybe and got in the nickel in the second half, and then stayed in the nickel when they were running it all over you. I mean, that seemed like one of the failures.
That's what Gene will be here to answer.
Did you all see that when you went back and looked at it?
That's what Gene will be here to answer. That's why we have our coordinators come for 30 minutes.
Is there anything that you can share as far as the conversations that you've had with Gene since the Georgia Tech game or over the past 2 weeks with the defensive struggles?
They're what you'd figure. I mean, they're not good. And the confusing thing is when you lose, everybody's negative about everything. That's just my 47 years in this business. When you win, people don't even talk about the negative things that happen because they're so excited about winning. They let a lot of stuff slide. So my job is to make sure I look at what the problems are and how to fix them. I look at what we do well and see how we can improve those. Everybody is griping about the defense, and they should. Part of that's the offensive problem in the fourth quarter. We didn't move the ball. Nobody's talking about that. That's facts. So I have to look at everything. So I've had the same conversations with the offense in a different way about, man, you were ahead and you didn't finish. As we do the defense, about till you start stopping the run and tackling people. I would rather them, Virginia threw for 495 yards around here 3 or 4 years ago and rushed for 21, and we won the game 59-38 or something. You can't let people run the ball and you win games. I'd rather them throw for a bunch than run. But if they can run it, they can do both. And Georgia Tech did a good job.
I asked you the other night how you were going to patch things together the next day, meaning yesterday. So what was yesterday like, and how did you approach it?
I approached with the team exactly what I say to you. I told them we're 2 drives away from being a top 5 team. That's how close we are. And at the same time, we were god-awful in the fourth quarter on both sides of the ball. You can't give up that many rushing yards, but also stay on the field offensively. And don't point fingers, because all of us are at fault. And I said, love you guys. You practiced hard. You were ready to play. I didn't think we matched Virginia's intensity. We matched Georgia Tech's intensity. They were ready to go. I love them. A lot of people would love to be 6-2. I put up all the comparable teams across the country. I said, you've got the 13th toughest schedule in the country. You're tired. You're beat up, like everybody else is in college football. You got a chance to finish strong against really good teams. So get your head up, and they remember November. You didn't play well in November last year. So you got a chance to get your fans back. You got a chance to be real positive. But we got to be honest with each other and fix the things that are wrong.
Going off that a little bit, kind of at this point in the season, going from obviously top 10, being out the rankings, kind of falling down the ACC race as well. I know, every week players play to win, but how do you kind of keep guys engaged, kind of at this point in the season with things going the way they are?
Yeah, 6-2 is one of the best seasons we've ever had around here at this point. If it's like last year, it's the way you present it. Starting 6-0, 2 losses is just discouraging. If you'd started 0-2 and won 6 in a row, everybody'd be pumped. And a lot of people would swap with us right now. So I don't get into, this is good, this is bad, this is an awful season, this is a great season. You do that at the end of the year, and we just got to keep playing.
And then kind of being out of the rankings, not to harp on it too much, but does that take this is a weird way of putting it, but is there a positive to that? Does it take like a shine or a pressure away from kind of you guys as you go week to week?
No, absolutely not. You'd always want to be ranked number 1 in the country. I mean, that's the pressure you want, so that's who we want to be, and we got to fight to get back in the rankings. And like I said, they're not important till the end. We earned the 10th ranking, and we've lost that opportunity the last 2 weeks. So, and you got to win close games to have great seasons anymore. If we lost in overtime to App State, we're 3-3. 5-3. So you can't take that stuff for granted. Winning's hard. You got to appreciate every win. And there's going to be some really good teams with 3 or 4 losses here at the end of the year, and that's going to start happening more and more. We're getting more like the NFL. NFL playoff teams can be 10-4, and they're excited. So that's kind of what's happening in college football.
Sort of along the lines of what Jeremiah's asking you, I was thinking about it this is an older group of guys, by and large, that had very ambitious goals for this season. And with the back-to-back losses, some of those goals, move further from reality. It's part of your challenge this week, in addition to fixing stuff, just like the motivation, like making sure the motivation doesn't dip or wane. Is that part of your plate?
Sure, but if you're trying to be the best you can be, and you're trying to improve every week, and you're trying to play up to a standard, none of that should matter. These are human beings, and obviously there's some disappointment for all of us, but they don't cancel the games, they don't cancel the season. There's guys on our team that won 2 games one year, and there's fans that didn't show up for 2 games that are bitching about 6 wins. So, I mean, that's just part of the deal. You just do the best you can do, trying to explain how 120 guys feel, and if they're excited, if they're disappointed. Some that didn't play are mad because they didn't play. Some that played good are really excited. Some that played bad are blaming coaches. I mean, across the country, that's what happens. It's a huge span of emotions when you start looking at a football team, and you just have to kind of balance it all out and do the best you can do and try to get ready to not only beat Campbell but get better this week, because you got one of the hardest schedules left emotionally that we've ever had.
Matt, you talked earlier in the year, you prefer these like FCS games to be toward the beginning of the season. I know hindsight's only 2020, but looking at it now, do you feel like this kind of game came at the perfect time for you guys, considering what's happened in the last 2 weeks?
I don't know. You got to play good. One of the problems we've got this week is everybody be talking about Duke and Clemson and State and not Campbell, and we've had a tendency around here to not play up to our best at times. So this is a great week for us to play to a standard. We played Wofford a few years ago, and I thought it was awful. They ran the ball on us. They kept the ball. I think we ended up winning 34-7 or something, and we didn't. What was the score? 34-14. And we didn't play well at all. We didn't play with emotion. I thought they left happy and we left mad. So what you got to do is you got to play. We got a lot of problems we got to fix, and so we got to do the best we can do to get better. We know we're sitting here talking about all the things we got to fix. We got to fix them, and you don't wave a wand and fix them.
Matt, can you talk about something I think that we lose sight of? There's coaching going on during the games. Your coordinators, their coordinators, they're adjusting, you're adjusting. So when something happens in the fourth quarter, have they found something? And if they found something that allowed them to be successful, is it your coach's job to counter that adjustment? Does that go on all the time during the game?
Yeah, it's constant, and that's why the coordinators will come here and answer those questions for you. I hear it all. I talk to them. I give suggestions. But I think that, especially defensively, we've adjusted so well all year. And we obviously didn't get it done in the fourth quarter Saturday night. We adjusted well in the third quarter. But we just didn't get things done like we needed to. So that's.
Were people in the wrong position, or was it fatigue that you could see at this point?
Gene will be here in just a minute. That's his job, is to tell you. We've gone over all this together. We've talked about it for hours. If we want the coordinators to keep coming down, I don't need to tell you what they're going to say.
Seth Ray's your most experienced player most of the defense. I think he said after the game, it felt like we didn't know what we were doing defensively. As a head coach, how do you take those kind of comments in terms of dealing with the staff and making sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah, I don't listen to anybody after a game because I'm so spent and disappointed, and especially a 21-year-old that's so disappointed. They're going to say disappointing things for them, and I don't blame them. I felt the same way. Losing's hard, man. Fans think losing's hard. You ought to spend every day of your life trying to prepare to win, and you ought to spend every day lifting weights and every day running to get to where you want and then lose in the last minutes. That's really hard. And then have to come and talk to you all and all of our fans. It's people can't even imagine how hard that is unless they've ever done it.
One of the themes of the first 6 games was how defensively they made a lot of adjustments. The communication between Gene and the kids was there. Case in point, the third quarter against Miami. As the head coach, are you a little bit surprised that maybe some of those adjustments haven't occurred in the last 2 games defensively?
I thought we adjusted really well at halftime. This week we had our best third quarter probably of the year. What we didn't do is they ran the ball and we didn't stop it in the fourth quarter. Is that players that weren't doing what they were supposed to? Is it players not knowing what to do? Was it poor coaching? That's where it gets confusing. And I always put it on the coaches, period. But everybody's responsible to step up. Players are responsible too. You got 11 on the field on defense. You can only put them in so many places.
I gotta ask, did you sleep much the other night? Because You look a little different after the loss demo. We've seen you other times. Maybe, I don't know what that might be. I'm just kind of curious what your evening was like when you got on the plane, got home, how you kind of went through all that.
I did the same thing I do after every game, except this time when it's an away game, I grade the video on the plane. I got home at 3:45. I sat up and watched it till probably 9 again. Try to get an hour or two sleep, and then come over here and start answering all the questions you all are asking me. And that's what we do with the staff. We spend an hour and a half with them, then we have to go talk to the players, and then we have meetings for about 3 hours to look at every play and try to decide what worked and what should have been done differently, what adjustments we should have made that we didn't make. Everything you're asking me, we talk about for hours. And then why didn't we make them? Why were we behind? Why didn't we do a better job coaching? Why didn't we score in the fourth quarter more? Why didn't we score on the last 2 drives in the Virginia game and the Georgia Tech game when we've done that around here? And we got a great offense, so why aren't we scoring at the end? I understand if it's a 4-minute offense. We haven't done that very well, but these weren't. These were behind where we should have come up and caught. Everybody's talking about defense. Offense is at fault too. I mean, it's there, and I have to look at everything. I can't just look at one side. But we were on the field too much. We didn't get stops. They ran the ball way too well. Maybe the best I've ever seen somebody run the ball against us in a quarter, and that's unacceptable and awful. Should we have adjusted better? Yes. Should we have tackled better? Yes. Should we have been in gaps better? Yes. It's awful. So everybody's responsible.
Mac, I remember you telling us, with Sam, you felt like it would be his last year, as it was his last year, and you felt like the home day games coming down the stretch would be his final home games, and you're saying the same thing with Drake. Like, when you have a quarterback like this, which you've had 2 times now, when you get to this part of the year, do you talk to them about, hey, these are probably your final games in a UNC uniform? Do you go, speak to them about that and, I don't know, try to make sure they're cognizant of it to savor whatever is left or anything like that?
Nope. I tell the players, you never know how many games you got left. If you get hurt, you may not have any games left. So I tell them, you better get ready to play every week, and you better enjoy the moment every week. I've never done that well. You ask me how I look and feel after a game, I feel like I've let everybody down. I'm miserable after a loss. I'm usually mad after wins because I'm thinking about all the things that we could have done better that could have gotten us to lose. But that's my personality. I mean, I got that. So I'm never happy after games normally because I'm trying to figure out, I need to get to a video to see what I thought happened and what really happened, because sometimes you miss it. And that's why I quit talking about how a player played, because I want to see it. If you see a bad play, you may think a player played a bad game. He might have played a great game and had 2 bad plays, and they were obvious, and that really hurt us. But you shouldn't talk about his efforts. You could talk about his execution on those 2 plays. This is really important to me. So I'm spent after the game anyway. If we lose, I'm crushed. I'm absolutely crushed. But do I have to pick everybody up and go back to work? Yeah, they're all looking at me. So if I walk in like the large majority of people after losses and say, this stinks, we're awful, coaches were bad, you guys were bad, this was terrible, we're going to lose the rest of the games, everybody looks at me and says, well, he's through, man, we're out of here. So I got to pick them up. And my job, Coach Dooley, Vince Dooley told me this when he was retiring, playing Michigan State in the Gator Bowl. I asked him, what you have to do to be a great young head coach? And he said, you have to take negatives and turn them into positives. You got 120 people, you're responsible for a fan base, you're responsible for media, you're responsible to an administration, you're responsible to all the high school coaches, all the parents. So you have a load, man. And you're going to have really bad stuff happen every day. And if you don't take those negatives and turn them into positives, you will never make it as a head coach. And that's my job. Are there negatives in this game? Yeah. Some of you all didn't notice. I see them all. Do I have to take the negatives and turn them into positives? Yes. Are those very hard conversations? Yes. Very direct and very hard. Uncomfortable? It doesn't matter. I don't care about who I make mad. It's not part of my job descriptions to keep everybody happy. And when you lose, you're not going to be happy. But do I have to get upbeat and positive and take a bunch of 18 to 21-year-olds and get them back and headed in the right direction and get them excited about playing this weekend? Absolutely. That's my job. I can't sit around and bitch all week about stuff that people are griping about. I got to fix things, be positive, and move forward. And that's my job. And that's one thing I'm good at, and that's one thing I like. And my job is to have a great practice in the morning, stop the run better, try to figure out why offensively our 1 minutes haven't been as good at the end of the game, get our punting fixed, do a better job with our field goals, got all those marked down, got to get after them in the morning, have a huge practice in the morning, and try to get better for an exciting finish in November, better than we did last year. That's my job.
With Doc Chapman having the explosive plays that he had, you mentioned him a little bit earlier. Right now with Nate and Tez kind of being banged up, how do you see him kind of taking on maybe a bigger kind of role in that offense just with the injury situation?
Yeah, Jeremiah, last year Doc was dropping all the balls. He just wasn't catching them. We couldn't figure it out. We got him some contacts, and that helped. Very honestly, it did. That fair? Yeah, Daz knew some the same way. Daz was dropping balls, and we got him contacts. So that's the first go-to. It's hard to teach somebody to catch that can't catch, but we said, let's get some contacts for you, man. And now he's catching the ball a lot better in practice. In fact, 3 weeks ago, Lonnie Galloway and I said, we need to play him more. And then he dropped 3 straight balls. And it was like he heard us. And I said, Lonnie said, I got you. Let's don't worry about it this week. We're not ready for that. But when Nate got hurt, we thought we'll use Bryson Nesbitt more. And we did. He's taken a bigger role. But at the same time, when Doc went in, he produced. So we're ready to play him now. We're ready to put him in the rotation and let him go. And he's real fast. Which was obvious on the kickoff return too. But he's getting confidence, and sometimes it just takes a player more. He was more of a running back slot guy in high school, so he carried it more than he caught it. But he's really responding. So yes, I think we'd see him play more.
Was that the biggest thing for him, just real quick, was that the biggest thing for him, the catching? I know you mentioned the contacts and everything, but was the catching aspect, was that kind of the biggest hurdle for him to?
Absolutely. And I mean, he's made a 100-degree turnaround from where he was. He was just dropping a bunch of balls, and we were just so frustrated because we love the kid and he's real fast. And now that he's got more confidence catching, and then your quarterback's got to have confidence in him too.
Can I follow up on that? The catch he made last week, the one going backwards, I mean, that was a really difficult ball to track and to catch and corral. How much did that little moment help his confidence? I would think with a young guy like him, something like that would just shoot up.
Yeah. You think about all of us. There's a lack of confidence is a disease in our society. And a lot of people hide it, but aren't near as many people confident as some act like they are. So here you've got these guys that want to play so badly and they want to please so badly, and they're highly publicized and they're highly recruited, and then they get here and they don't play well. And then everybody's asking, why aren't they playing? And we have to be careful because you don't want to talk bad about a young guy and him feel worse. So it takes sometimes like that play as a moment to say, I got this thing. I can play. I can catch in a game that matters. And with Nate being hurt as much as he's been, then we need Doc to step up. So this should be a great confidence boost for him. And then you've got to make sure that you don't get comfortable and go back and not have the same concentration. So everything we do is to try to make somebody better and keep them going this way. And that's what we've got to make sure we get done this week.
Mac, when Tez took that big hit late in the game, obviously we know he's okay now, but I mean, you see him go off like that after staying down for a while. Because the game wasn't over at that point, so how hard was it to mentally detach yourself from that situation and go back to a live game?
Well, I can do it because I go to every hurt player if they lay there very long, because I want to make sure they're okay, and normally they'll talk to me. So if they're not talking to the doctors or the trainers, I'm around them more than the doctors or trainers. So when I got to Tez and I said, "Are you okay?" his eyes opened And he said, yes. And they moved his feet and they moved his hands. So from a, quote, parent, father figure, I know he's okay. I don't know if there's something hurt internally, but I know he's not paralyzed. I know he can move. I know he's talking. So I'm good. I know he's not going to play anymore in the game. But my deal then is to try to show our players and if families watching that he's okay without making a big to-do about it. So I told the players, we're good. We're good. Go back and get ready to go. And then smartly, they kept him in the hospital just to make sure that everything was okay, because it was a tough hit.
Mac, yeah, I was actually going to ask you about Tez. Like, so when he gets back here yesterday, obviously, like what? I know you went to check on him at some point between then and now. Like, what have your interactions been with? Like, how does he seem? Like, what did you tell him? Just what was it like when you saw him for the first time once he got back here?
I did not see him yesterday because he didn't sleep at all. He was up all night in the hospital. So when he got back on the plane, we sent him to his place to sleep. Made sure the trainers and doctors checked him out. So I haven't seen him yet because Lonnie said he's exhausted. And I said, tell him to go to bed and we'll see him tomorrow. So we'll see him today. And Lonnie's talked to him and we took him dinner so he wouldn't have to get out. In fact, Gavin Blackwell's his roommate. He took him his dinner because I said, let's make sure who's got Tez taken care of. And Gavin says, I got it. So Amber Reinstein, our nutritionist, figured out what he needed to be eating, made him a good plate, and Gavin took it to him. So, and everybody's checking on him. As soon as we heard, I heard from Jeremy after the game he was okay, but going to the hospital. When I talked to you all, I didn't know he was going to the hospital even then. And that's what I learned with Octavius Barnes in the CarQuest Bowl. He had an awful knee injury. And the TV reporter came over and interviewed him on the sideline, and he was crying. And he or the doctor, somebody said he's through. He's ruined his knee. And it really upset his family because they weren't there and they couldn't take care of him. And at that point, I said, we will never, ever talk about an injury again until we have all family members caught up to date on exactly what happened before we tell you guys. And that's, we don't let, we take them in immediately if somebody's hurt bad, and we do not let TV cameras get around them on the sideline because that's not fair to parents to see their son sitting there. And he was just told that he's out for the year, or the next year possibly, and here he is a pro prospect. That's why we're very, very cautious with someone afterwards. I tell them not to tell me during the game. All they tell me, because I'm emotional and I don't want to be told a guy's out for the year, and they may not know for sure. Sometimes doctors are human and they'll tell you it looks bad, he's out for the year, I think, and then he's not. So I said, all I want to know and all I want our players and coaches to know is he out for the rest of the game. That's all we ask, and that's what they tell us, so we'll know that he's not available for the rest of the game. And one of the things that hurts you see 12 on the field or 10 on the field sometimes in special teams. It's because a young one will get hurt, and then he has to go to the trainers and doctors. So Brian Hess is responsible for telling every coach that he's involved with, special teams and the regular position, that he's out and unavailable. And then sometimes they'll say, okay, he's ready to go back in, and all the information in time doesn't get to the right coach, and he goes back in, and nobody's told his replacement that he's out, and that's how you get 12 on the field right quick.
Was Tez's parents at the game?
I don't think so.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Do you try to communicate with them quickly, let them know?
Absolutely.
They're watching on television.
Yes, we called immediately to, I think we talked to Dad, maybe high school coach immediately. You've got to figure out who you can find. And we try to keep contacts on everybody. So, but that's really important for us. And that's the management of the game. And then, as Michael said, then I got to go back. After I know he's okay, I got to go back and try to get back in the game and try to figure out how to win the game. And what do you do without him in there? And it's just a fumble. So then we got We got our timeouts left, but we got to stop them. We hadn't stopped the run, so what do we do to stop them? And then how much time we're going to have left? We'll have to have 1 minute offense because we're going to be out of timeouts regardless. When can they take a knee? All those things are going through your mind, and at the end of the game, trying to figure out how you can make something happen.
Mac, years ago when he was getting into coaching, it seemed like Mike Minter was like really adamant about it. I mean, he's transitioning from playing to what he's doing now. I mean, he was all over the place politicking for jobs. I was just wondering if and maybe not, if he approached you at all with any advice or to help him get started or anything like that.
No, I don't know Mike, and I was here when he was at Nebraska, so I never coached against him as a player because I looked it up. He went to the Panthers, I think, in 97, 98, something, or maybe he finished at Nebraska, and he was had a great career with the Panthers. And then I think he coached at Liberty and Smith before he went to Campbell, but he's done a really good job at Campbell.
All right, guys. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Coach. Appreciate you.